Welcome, dear horror listener. You're tuning into Horror Radio, and I'm truly grateful you're here. Whether you're a long-time listener or just stumbled upon this channel, thank you for joining me for another scary tale. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow and means more than you know. I'd also love to hear from you in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from, what brought you here, or even what kind of story you'd like to hear next. Your support keeps this channel going, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's get into today's horror story. When I started delivering full-time, I figured the worst part of the job would be traffic or the occasional rude customer. Maybe dealing with a cold order here or there, or trying to find a hidden apartment unit in the dark. I never expected anything really uncomfortable. But what happened that spring changed how I feel about showing up at someone's door. My name's Heather. I was 27 at the time and living just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. Not quite rural, not quite city. My little duplex was off a quiet road near a middle school, 2 bedrooms, a modest kitchen, a tiny backyard with a bent chain link fence. I'd picked it for the price and the fact that it wasn't a complex with thin walls and noisy neighbors. I've been working for a few delivery apps since the pandemic started, but it had become my main gig once I realized I could make more doing that than clocking in at a desk somewhere. I liked the flexibility. I could work mornings or nights, take breaks when I needed, and best of all, not really deal with people face to face unless I had to hand something off. I'm not antisocial or anything, but I like my space. Around late March, I started noticing a regular customer popping up in my queue. Same name, same address. Roy. The first time I delivered to him, it was a typical late evening drop, probably around 8:30 p.m. I remember it because it was one of those houses just off the main road, tucked between 2 massive oak trees and barely lit. Not run down, just plain. Single story, white siding, chain link fence around the yard. Porch light was off, which always annoys me because it makes it harder to find a right door. I use my flashlight app and double-check the house number before walking up the gravel driveway. When I got to the door, it opened before I even knocked. It startled me. I remember thinking how weird it was that he was waiting like that. Roy was probably mid-50s, thin, glasses, wearing what looked like a clean flannel shirt and old jeans. He smiled, too wide, and said, "You're fast." Then he laughed like it was a compliment. I smiled politely, handed him his sandwich and soda, and said, "Have a good one." He lingered a second, like he wanted to keep talking, but I was already halfway back to my car. Over the next 2 weeks, I got assigned to Roy's house 4 more times. He always ordered at night, usually something simple, burgers, wings, once a milkshake from that old-fashioned place near downtown. Every time I delivered, he'd open the door before I could knock. Every time, he'd make some comment about me being on time, or how it's nice to have the same person show up. I started feeling uneasy about it after the 3rd drop, but I told myself I was overthinking. People get comfortable with routine. Maybe I just happened to be the driver in his area often. But then came the 5th delivery. I was tired that night. I'd been on shift since noon, and it was nearing 10 p.m. Roy's order came through, just fries and a shake. I almost declined it, but it was on my way home, so I figured fine, one more. This time, when I walked up to the house, the porch light was on. That struck me as odd because it hadn't been on before, but I was thankful for it. No fumbling around with my phone flashlight. I was halfway up the driveway when I noticed something else. The blinds in the living room window moved, just a little, like someone had peeked out and then let them fall back. It put a weight in my chest I couldn't quite explain. Still, I walked up to the door. It opened as usual, but this time Roy stepped out onto the porch. He smiled again. Not wide this time, just this tight, almost nervous grin. "I was hoping I'd get you," he said. "You're the only one who knocks like that." I hadn't even knocked yet. I forced a chuckle, handed him the bag, and muttered something about finishing my shift. He stepped forward a little, still holding the bag. "You don't have to run off," he said. "You look tired. Want to come in for a water or something?" "No thanks." I replied quickly. Long night. He kept standing there, not moving. It's safe. I don't buy. I took a half step back. Really, I'm good. His face fell a little, like I'd hurt his feelings. Okay, he said softly, backing into the doorway. Just thought it'd be nice to talk. I turned and walked, briskly, to my car. I didn't look back until I pulled out onto the street, and when I did, I saw him still standing there. Porch light off, just his silhouette in the doorframe. After that, I started avoiding his area. Declined any order that matched his address. I figured he'd stop requesting me, but then it got worse. I was pulling out of the gas station near my place one evening when I spotted his car. I didn't even know what he drove until then, an older silver Civic. It was 2 pumps over, and Roy was standing outside it, facing the convenience store window. I froze, watching to see if he'd noticed me. He hadn't, or maybe he pretended not to. I waited until he went inside, then pulled out of the lot and circled the block twice before heading home. 2 days later, he ordered again, but this time, it wasn't from a restaurant near his house. It was from 1-2 blocks from mine. I declined the order. I didn't feel safe. I started locking my front door during the day. Even when I was home, I pulled the blinds shut completely and stopped working night shifts altogether. I even parked my car in a neighbor's driveway for a few days, just so it wouldn't be visible. Then came the night someone knocked on my door around 11 p.m. I was on the couch with my cat, lights off, watching TV. The knock wasn't loud, just 3 slow, even taps. I froze, didn't move. My heart beat so hard I could feel it in my ears. My motion light hadn't gone off, which meant whoever was out there had either avoided it or was standing just beyond its range. I waited almost 10 minutes before creeping to the front window and peeking through the edge of the curtain. No one was there, but a delivery bag was sitting on my porch. I hadn't ordered anything. The bag had no logo, just plain brown paper with handles. I called the police. An officer came out, checked the bag. It had a wrapped sandwich inside, still warm. No receipt, no name. They couldn't do much. No proof it was Roy, no threat made. They offered to make a note of it and said to call again if anything else happened. I didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. I started staying with a friend across town. We made jokes about it, tried to downplay it. Creepy DoorDash dude turned stalker. Sound like something out of a bad true crime show. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was building. A week passed. Then another. No more knocks. No more strange orders. I slowly returned home, checked over my shoulder every time I stepped outside, but nothing happened. Then one afternoon, I came home from running errands and found a note slid under my front door. It was on lined notebook paper, in neat handwriting. I'm sorry I made you uncomfortable. I didn't mean to upset you. I just wanted to be kind. It won't happen again. No name. But I didn't need one. That same night, I filed a police report. They opened a case and said they'd keep it on file. I didn't press for a restraining order. I just wanted to document it. I told him his name, gave them his address, even showed them the delivery history on my phone. I never heard anything back, but he stopped ordering after that. Or maybe the apps flagged him. Either way, I haven't seen Roy since. I still deliver, but only during the day now. I stick to neighborhoods I know, and I trust my gut when something feels off. I wish I had trusted it sooner. I've worked food delivery on and off for the last 4 years, mostly evenings. The flexibility is great. I like not having a boss breathing down my neck every second. But every now and then something weird happens. Usually just awkward customer interactions or shady apartment complexes that give you a bad vibe. This was different. This was the kind of thing that creeps into your head long after it's over. My name's Eli. I'm 29, live in Aurora, Colorado, and I deliver for one of the bigger apps. No need to name it. This happened back in mid-June, right at the tail end of a heat wave that had been choking the Denver suburbs for days. You know the kind where the pavement cooks your shoes and your shirts soak through before noon? It was still 92 degrees when the sun went down that day. I'd already done 9 deliveries before this one came in. Just a single combo meal and a milkshake from a drive-thru burger spot. I was on the south end of town, mostly residential neighborhoods with narrow roads, small houses packed together, and lots of broken sidewalks. The delivery location was just 10 minutes away, and I figured I'd get it done and head home after. Except halfway there, the heat and all the water I've been chugging caught up with me. I had to pee. Bad. The kind of urgent where your body decides you got maybe 2 minutes, tops, before it's making the decision for you. I spotted a gas station, but didn't want to go in with food in the car. It was already a few minutes behind schedule. Plus, I figured I'd drop the food off and find somewhere to relieve myself right after. The address took me to one of those little one-way side streets with streetlights every other block and the kind of trees that cast long shadows across the yards. I slowed as I approached the address and noticed immediately that the house was dark. No porch light, no inside lights, nothing. There were many other cars parked on the street. Most of the houses were quiet, and with the street light out directly in front of the place, it made the whole area feel dimmer than it should have been. I double-checked the app. Address matched. Notes were blank. Payment was cash, which meant I had to see someone. I parked on the curb across the street and called the number listed on the order. The girl answered, her voice slightly winded. "Hey," she said. "I'm almost home. Please don't leave." I had to walk back from the 7-Eleven. I didn't realize how late it was. I said it was no problem and told her I'd wait. She thanked me quickly and hung up. Her voice was young, maybe college-aged, and something about how out of breath she sounded made me feel weird, like she was actually running. I didn't think too hard about it though. I just knew I wasn't about to go up to the door of a pitch-black house until someone showed up. I figured I had maybe 3 to 4 minutes before she arrived, and I really had to go. I scanned the area. No open businesses, no fast food joints within walking distance, and all the yards were too exposed. But then I noticed that the customer's house had a row of hedges lining the front porch, tall enough to block the view from the street and for neighboring houses. I told myself it was a dumb idea. Then my bladder told me I didn't have a choice. I grabbed a fast food napkin from the glove box and jogged across the street to the far side of the house, aiming for the thickest part of the hedges. I stood between them and the outer wall, turned away from the house, and unzipped. I'd barely started when I heard something shift in the leaves beside me. At first, I thought it was a raccoon. Then the sound changed, sudden, low movement, and the unmistakable scuff of a shoe dragging across dry dirt. Someone stood up. A man. He moved fast, right past me, pushing through the hedges and out toward the street. I only caught a glimpse. Baggy hoodie despite the heat, jeans, dark shoes. But he didn't run. He walked quickly, hunched slightly, not saying a word, just moving like someone who didn't want to be seen. I was frozen, literally midstream, half-zipped, stunned like an idiot. When I finally got my legs working, I backed out of the hedges, adrenaline pounding in my chest. I looked toward the sidewalk, but couldn't see him anymore. A moment later, I heard the screech of tires somewhere down the street. For a few seconds, I stood there in total silence. Then I remembered the delivery, the girl. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and checked for texts. Nothing. I was about to call her back when I saw a small drawstring bag tucked in the hedges right near where the guy had been crouched. It hadn't been visible until now, half covered by mulch and leaves. Against all better judgment, I picked it up and looked inside. Duct tape, a pair of latex gloves, a folded rag, and a knife. Not some kitchen knife either. It was a black folding blade. Tactical looking. That's when everything inside me dropped. I sprinted back to my car, locked the doors, and floored it 2 blocks up the street before I pulled over and called 911. The dispatcher kept me on the line, asked me to describe everything I saw. I told him about the guy, the bag, the voice on the phone. Then my phone buzzed. A new text. "Hey, I'm here, where are you?" The girl. I immediately told the dispatcher she just texted and that she might be walking toward the house right now. They told me not to return, that officers were en route, But I couldn't just sit there. What if the guy had doubled back? What if there was someone else? I turned the car around. As I neared the house again, I spotted her walking down the sidewalk, clearly scanning for my car. She had a crossbody purse, was wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and looked totally oblivious. No phone in her hand, no earbuds. Just walking toward her house like it was any other night. I rolled down my window and called out softly, "Hey, are you Sarah?" She turned and smiled, confused. "Yeah." I waved her over, voice low. "Get in the car, please." She hesitated, took a step back. I showed her my delivery app with her name and order on it, then turned the screen to my active call with 911. "There was a guy in your bushes. I already called the cops. I don't know if he's still nearby, but I saw his bag. It had a knife." Her face drained of color. She didn't ask questions. She got in. We drove half a mile to a Walgreens parking lot, where I waited with her until 2 police cars arrived. She talked to them first, then they took my statement separately. It turns out she'd been dealing with a stalker for a couple months. Someone she thought was a guy from work who had gotten let go, but never confirmed. Just weird messages, things out of place in her yard. She never had enough to file anything official, but this was proof. I don't know what happened after that night. I was never called to testify or anything. The cops said they'd follow up, but I never heard back. I blocked off deliveries in that zip code for a long time. And when I finally did go back to working nights again, I always made sure to call for my car first before approaching a house, especially if the porch light was off. And if you're wondering, I didn't get in trouble for peeing in the bushes. I didn't even mention it in the report. But yeah, I definitely think about it every time I get out of the car now. I try not to imagine what would have happened if I hadn't had to go so badly. If she'd shown up and he was still in the hedges. If I'd brushed it off and driven away. I just hope she's okay. I was 16 when I got my first job, delivering Chinese food around a small, mostly quiet town in western Pennsylvania. I had just gotten my driver's license, and after weeks of begging my mom to let me work, she finally gave in. The place was a little family-owned restaurant at the edge of the strip mall, tucked between a laundromat and a nail salon. It was called Golden Walk, and for a while, it felt like the safest place in the world. I'm Danielle. Back then I was a shy kid. Didn't talk much unless someone asked me something first, didn't party, didn't even really hang out after school. But I liked the people of the restaurant. My bosses, Ying and Mr. Chu, were kind to me in a way strict but affectionate grandparents might be. They'd feed me egg rolls during slow hours and scold me gently when I forgot to double-check a sauce packet. Mr. Chu didn't speak much English, but his wife translated everything and smiled like it was never a big deal. She called me Danny Girl and always sent me out with a full tank and enough cash for change. Friday nights were always busy. Between the high school football games, bored families, and late-night movie watchers, the phone wouldn't stop ringing from 5 p.m. till close. I liked the rush. Most of the deliveries were routine. Doorbell, handoff, quick, thank you, and maybe a couple bucks in tips. Occasionally someone would forget they ordered and answer the door half asleep in slippers. But there was never anything scary until that one night. It was late, probably around 9:45. I just returned from a double run and was thinking about asking if I could leave early since the orders were slowing down. That's when Ing handed me a ticket. "Last one," she said. "Easy house, just 5 minutes." It was on the other side of town, toward an older neighborhood where the houses sat a little farther apart, and the porch lights were more often off than on. I wasn't too familiar with it, but it wasn't far enough out to raise any red flags. The order was small, sesame chicken combo, side of fried rice, 2 spring rolls. Paid in cash. I counted out $20 in change from the drawer and took off. The drive over was dark. It had just rained earlier in the evening, so the roads were still wet, and my headlights were reflecting off the pavement in weird, blurry streaks. I found the house tucked at the corner of a cul-de-sac, A single-story place with peeling siding and a chain hung across the driveway for some reason. The only light came from a porch lamp that was faintly flickering, like it couldn't decide whether to stay on or not. I pulled up, parked at the curb, and carried the brown paper bag up to the front steps. I knocked once, then twice. After a few seconds, the door opened, and a man stepped out. He was maybe late 40s, wearing a tank top and flannel pajama pants. His face was red like he'd been drinking, and he had a can of beer in one hand. When he smiled, I saw that he was missing a tooth. Just one, off to the side. "You're quick," he slurred. I nodded and tried to stay polite. "That'll be $17.35. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded $100 bill, held it up between two fingers and smiled. "I don't have anything smaller," he said, like it was a joke we were both in on. "Oh," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I don't have enough change for that. I'll need to head back to the restaurant real quick and grab some." Before I could turn to leave, he leaned a little too far out the door. "Why don't he just come in for a sec?" he asked, voice too casual. I'd got cold beer and I could use the company. My stomach flipped. It wasn't the first time someone had made a weird comment, but this felt different. His body was angled halfway into the doorway, but his eyes didn't move off me once. He didn't look drunk enough to stumble, but drunk enough not to care what was appropriate. "No, I'm good," I said quickly. "I'll be right back with change." "You sure?" "Come on, just a minute. It's cold out here." It wasn't cold. It was late May and humid. I was sweating through my shirt from the car's busted AC. I started backing down the steps with the bag still in hand. He smiled wider. "You're a cute little thing. You don't have to be so shy." I turned and walked briskly back to my car, ignoring whatever else he mumbled. By the time I got back to the restaurant, my hands were shaking. I told him I didn't want to go back. He creeped me out, I said, trying to find the right words without sounding like I was overreacting. He kept asking me to come inside. He wouldn't take no. She frowned, concerned. "You get him food?" I shook my head. He didn't have anything but $100. She turned to Mr. Chu, spoke to him in Mandarin. He said something back, then nodded toward the cash drawer. Ing handed me the exact change. "It's okay. Just give it to him, no talk." I opened my mouth to protest, but I could tell it wasn't going to help. It wasn't that she didn't believe me. I think she did. But it was late, and we were trying to wrap up the night. I was the one who had the car, so I drove back. I didn't get out right away. I sat in the car, gripping the steering, like it would somehow help me think. I could still feel his eyes from earlier, the way he leaned out like he was testing the space between us. The porch light was still flickering. The driveway was still chained. I grabbed the bag, stuffed the change into my back pocket, and forced myself to walk to the steps. I didn't knock this time. The door opened before I reached the top. He was still holding the beer. A different can, maybe. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "There she is," he said, dragging the words out. "Did you change your mind?" I didn't respond. I handed him the bag, pulled the change from my pocket, and counted it into his hand without looking him in the face. "There's your order. Have a good night." He stepped forward, just slightly, like he wanted to block me in. "You sure you don't want to stay a minute? I got movies. I got snacks. Hell, I'll even tip you better than anyone else does." I shook my head. "No, thank you. I have more deliveries." I didn't, but it was the only excuse I could grab. He laughed, not mean, but not nice either. "You'll change your mind eventually." I turned, walked fast, and didn't run until I hit the sidewalk. The whole drive back, I kept checking my mirrors, even though I knew he wasn't following me. I didn't tell my mom that night. I didn't tell her for a while, actually. Just said work had been busy and that I was tired. I showered, changed, and laid awake most of the night, replaying the interaction in my head and thinking about what could have happened if I'd hesitated, or if he hadn't taken the change and tried something instead. The next time an order came up at his address, I asked Ding to send someone else. She didn't ask why. She just nodded and sent one of the older guys. I didn't last long at the restaurant after that. A couple more months. I loved the people there, But after that night, I couldn't shake the tension I felt every time a new address popped up. Sometimes when I pass that part of town, I wonder if he still lives there. If he ever said something like that to someone else, a girl who maybe didn't back away. I think about that a lot. I used to deliver for a local pizza shop in Northeast Missouri, back when I was 20, and to try and keep up with rent and college tuition. It wasn't a glamorous job by any means. The store smelled like mildew, the ovens were temperamental, and the manager had this habit of clipping his toenails behind the counter when it got slow. But the ticks were decent, and the night shift left me free most mornings for class. My name's Rena, by the way. At that point in my life, I was anxious about everything. Driving at night, being shortchanged, being too slow on deliveries. But I also hated confrontation and was overly polite to a fault. That combo, looking back, made me a perfect target for the kind of people who think they can push boundaries because no one ever checks them. It was a humid Friday in early June, one of those nights where the air clings to your skin even after the sun sets. I was closing solo that night since the other driver called in sick. Around 11:40 p.m., just as I was starting to clean the back seat of my Civic from all the napkin spills and garlic sauce packs, an order came in for a house just off a county road I didn't recognize. The ticket read, "Leave at door, cash payment, please don't knock, baby sleeping." Normally, those kinds of instructions are relief. No awkward small talk, just drop and go. But what struck me first was the address. It wasn't a subdivision or near any businesses, just kind of sitting by itself outside city limits. I plugged it into Google Maps and saw it was about a 17-minute drive. Not unusual, but still I took a screenshot and sent it to my roommate, a habit I had for late shifts, just in case. I pulled up around midnight. The house was older, a brown single-story with warped siding and a flickering porch light. The gravel driveway was uneven, with weeds crawling up the sides. No other houses nearby, just open fields and a tree line behind the property. The kind of place you'd miss if you blinked. I parked near the mailbox and grabbed the pizza bag from my passenger seat. As I walked up to the door, I noticed something off. The porch light buzzed like it was shorting out, casting shadows that stretched unnaturally. I didn't feel unsafe exactly, just alert. I figured I'd leave the pizza on the doormat, take a photo for the app, and leave. But then the door opened before I even knocked. This guy, maybe in his 60s, maybe younger but worn down, stood in the doorway. Thin, sun-damaged skin, gray scruff, shirtless with these high, belted jeans that looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. He had a stained towel draped over one shoulder like he was in the middle of fixing something. "You the girl from Rico's?" he asked. I nodded and started to hold out the pizza. "Yeah, large pepperoni. That'll be $17.42. He didn't take it, just stepped aside and said, "Come in, it's hot out." It wasn't cold at all. If anything, the air inside looked stuffy and darker than it should have been. I told him I was fine staying on the porch and repeated the total, trying not to sound nervous. He frowned and waved a hand toward the driveway. "You're letting bugs in," standing there with the door open. Before I could respond, I heard a woman's voice from inside. "Tell her to come in. Don't be rude." Then softer, almost sing-song, "We made her something sweet." That's when I should have walked away. But something about the way she said it froze me for a second. I didn't want to be rude. My brain went into that weird, over-politeness mode like I was afraid of offending them, even though my gut had already clenched. So I stepped in, just 1 foot past the threshold, and he shut the screen door behind me. It took a second for my eyes to adjust. The living room was cluttered. That's not the right word. It was overrun. Every surface, including the couch and coffee table, was covered in porcelain dolls. Not just a few here and there, dozens, maybe hundreds, lining the walls, sitting on stacks of books, peeking out from between lamps and plastic plants. I even saw a few propped up in the fake fireplace like they were watching from inside. The woman appeared around the corner, her arms stretched out like she'd been waiting. "We baked banana cake," She beamed. Just a thank you. You work so hard out there. She held a plate with a slice already cut, like she expected me to eat it right then. I declined, lightly, saying I'd just eaten on my break. She didn't respond, just smiled with her lips, not her eyes, and kept holding it there. The guy started rifling through drawers near the TV, muttering, "Gotta have some change somewhere." I tried again to get him to just take the pizza so I could go, but he waved me off. "I'm not stiffing you," he said. "You kids always think old folks are out to rob you." The woman was still standing in front of me, still holding the plate. "Eat," she said this time, not suggested, told. I shook my head again and tried to keep my voice even. I really need to get back to the shop. That's when a man turned back around, holding a single quarter in his hand. "Don't be ungrateful," he muttered. "She baked that special." The woman's hand didn't move. Neither did her smile. She was just staring at me now, as if waiting for some internal countdown. "I appreciate it," I said quickly, "but I've got 3 more orders in the car. I have to go." It was a lie, but I needed an exit. I set the pizza down on the nearest pile of magazines and reached for the doorknob. It was sticky, like someone had wiped honey on it or something. My breath caught for a second, but I yanked it open and stepped out without looking back. I didn't run, but my legs were tense the whole walk to my car. I got in, locked the doors, and put the car in reverse so fast I nearly hit the mailbox. In my rearview mirror, I could see the man step onto the porch. He stood there for a few seconds before flicking the porch light off. No wave, no goodbye, just darkness. Back at the shop, I told the manager what happened. He laughed and said, "Oh, you met the Nesters. They're harmless. Little weird, sure, but harmless." I didn't argue. I just said I wasn't taking any more county road deliveries. 2 weeks later, someone else got sent out there. A new driver named Troy. He came back white as a sheet, didn't say a word, just dropped his keys on the counter and quit on the spot. I asked him what happened. "They had a room full of jars," he said, "like mason jars, stacked to the ceiling. I think there were teeth inside. I never delivered to that house again, and I never ate banana cake again, either."